So our sources this week, they really push us past, the headlines, the political win of that October 2025 peace agreement.
Right.
We're not really looking at who signed what. We're doing a deep dive into the massive, sprawling, frankly, the overwhelming job of reconstruction that has to start, like, the very next day.
It's absolutely critical, that shift in focus. I mean, signing a treaty, that gives you a moment of hope, sure.
A big moment.
A huge moment. But rebuilding a society that's been shattered, that takes logistical genius, political agreement, a kind of generational commitment, that's where the real heavy lifting begins.
Yeah.
So our mission here is really to unpack the logistical, the emotional, the infrastructural challenges that kick in right after the fighting stops.
And the scale, when you first look at it, I mean, the numbers are just dizzying. 2 years of fighting led to nearly 1.9 million people being displaced. You just have to sit with that figure for a second.
Like 2 million.
Almost 2 million people who didn't just lose, stuff, property. They lost their anchor points, homes, schools, their history. It's this immediate systemic collapse.
And it really highlights the painful efficiency of destruction compared to how frustratingly slow recovery is.
Yeah.
There's this analogy our sources use. It's really potent. You called it the domino effect.
That's right. I mean, think about it, right? Setting up thousands of dominoes perfectly. That's like decades of careful work. Building hospitals that function, stable power grids, schools.
All that development.
Exactly. But it takes just seconds, or maybe a few months in this conflict's case, for everything to just fall down. It really shows the massive imbalance in effort needed for rebuilding versus how easy collapse is.
And that sort of sets up our whole premise for this deep dive, doesn't it? Reconstruction isn't just ordering concrete and steel.
No.
When a building collapses, you lose way more than just bricks. You lose that feeling of home, community memories, and that fundamental thing, feeling safe.
Yeah, safety.
So restoring dignity, rebuilding trust, that's the real foundation work that has to happen right alongside putting up walls again.
That really frames the enormity of it all. Okay, so let's unpack this, starting with what the sources call the absolute first step. Phase 1, survival before structure.
Right. Because that transition from war to rebuilding, it's not smooth at all. It's more like a sudden lurch towards emergency relief.
Yeah.
The peace deal is just the pivot.
Okay.
The very first step has got to be survival. You can't talk about, long-term economic plans if people are literally dying of dehydration or lack of basic medicine.
All right.
People need life support before they need, city planning blueprints.
I found the details in the sources about the immediate actions really striking. So right after the announcement, the goal is to just flood the zone with aid through the Rafah crossing.
Exactly. That crossing, which is already fragile, mind you.
Right.
We're talking instant triage. Trucks packed with food, clean water, emergency medical kits, temporary shelters.
But that crossing, it instantly becomes the most critical bottleneck, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's the main supply line, and it'll be operating way beyond what it was designed for. And you have to remember, the roads leading to it are probably damaged too.
Okay, yeah.
So how do aid groups even get supplies secured and then distributed to 1.9 million people scattered across basically a field of rubble? It's incredibly complex coordination, often with destroyed roads, security risks for the aid workers. It's tough.
Sounds like a complete logistical nightmare. And it really highlights that basic need you mentioned, summed up by that phrase. People need bread before blueprints, medicine before monuments.
Precisely. The absolute first priority is physiological needs, survival. But what does that actually look like on the ground beyond just handing out food parcels?
Right.
It means tackling the complete failure of basic public infrastructure.
Okay. So once the basic survival aid starts flowing, what structures have to be fixed first? Because I'm guessing pretty much everything is broken.
You have to focus on the absolute lifeblood systems, the things that allow life itself to continue.
Yeah.
We're talking critical public works, getting water pipelines running again, fixing sewage networks, which is huge given the risk of contamination everywhere. And, crucially, restoring electricity networks, or at least patches of them.
I get the water and sanitation link, that's obvious. But why is getting diesel fuel in mentioned so specifically and so early in the sources? That feels like a really technical detail to prioritize so highly.
It's actually life and death. Simple as that. When the main power grid is down, and you have to assume it will be diesel, is what powers the generators.
Okay. Generators.
For everything critical. Hospitals rely on them.
Yeah.
Water purification plants need them. Sewage pumping stations need them. Without diesel fuel, all those systems just stop.
Right. leading to immediate public health disasters.
Exactly. It's like the hidden energy source for the immediate recovery phase. So
Yeah.
quickly stabilizing water, power, and getting that fuel flowing, that's really phase one.
It really drives home that phase one isn't about building anything new yet. It's just about making the ruins survivable.
Hmm.
Okay. This level of detail, it takes us way beyond just a news headline.
Mm-hmm.
So once those vital signs are stable water, power, fuel, the sources say the healing has to go beyond just concrete. It needs to stabilize the psychological infrastructure too.
Yeah.
That takes us into phase two, the physical and spiritual dimensions of recovery.
Yeah, that transition is key because the danger is always seeing reconstruction as just a building project,
Yeah.
a transaction.
Right.
True recovery has to be physical and spiritual, or maybe psychological is a better word. If people are physically safe but still feel utterly hopeless, that peace agreement won't hold.
Makes sense.
So once those basics are flowing, the pivot is towards rebuilding the structures of society. Homes, definitely, but also schools, clinics.
And the sources are quite specific about the purpose of those buildings. It's not just, we need X number of schools.
Exactly. It's not just about a roof over your head. It's about creating places where, kids can laugh again, where mothers feel safe walking down the street, where fathers can actually find work and provide for their families with some dignity.
So it ties the physical rebuilding directly to measuring emotional health, societal health, using human well-being as the yardstick, not just tons of cement poured.
Right. And this is where you hit the first really big dilemma for the planners, a genuine trade-off.
Which is?
Do you go for speed, which means quickly throwing up temporary housing, maybe modular clinics, just to get those 1.9 million people sheltered fast? Or do you prioritize dignity and long-term stability, which means focusing only on building durable, properly planned homes and facilities from the start?
Wow, that's a terrible choice to have to make. Quick fixes offer immediate relief, but you risk creating, well, long-term slums or camp.
Exactly, perpetuating dependency.
But the slower, more durable approach ensures quality, but it leaves millions vulnerable for potentially months, maybe even years.
Precisely. The sources acknowledge this is a massive hurdle. It needs a really delicate political balancing act, trying to build fast, but also maintain standards for the future city.
Which leads us to the huge, really daunting question. How long is this actually going to take, this, generation-defining task?
The timelines they project are, well, they're sobering. Experts are estimating 10 to 20 years just for the physical reconstruction.
10 to 20 years.
And they're very clear that's under optimistic conditions.
What does that mean, optimistic?
It means assuming near-perfect political stability inside Gaza and continuous strong international funding coming in without major interruptions.
10 to 20 years. That basically means relying on international support for an entire generation. How do the sources talk about the risk of, donor fatigue, people getting tired of funding this over decades?
Yeah, that's a huge risk.
Doesn't the funding just dry up after year 5 once it's off the front pages?
That's the core political challenge. The sources stress that the reconstruction efforts absolutely must show tangible progress quickly. Things like schools reopening, clinics functioning, even on a small scale.
To keep the interest alive.
Exactly. To sustain international commitment. They draw parallels, to other post-conflict zones like Syria or Yemen.
Right.
And sadly, those places show how quickly that initial global goodwill can just evaporate, leaving crucial projects half-finished.
So the commitment can't just be a 5-year plan. It has to be seen as a multi-decade promise.
It really has to be.
Okay, that need for ongoing commitment, that brings us nicely to our third section, measuring success and participation. If recovery takes, say, 2 decades, you can't just wait until 2045 to see if it worked. How do we measure success differently beyond just counting buildings?
Yeah, the focus has to shift radically. It's less about simple infrastructure output, how many miles of road rebuilt, and more about holistic human outcomes.
Like,
well, recovery is measured in schools. Reopened, yes. But also in jobs created. And maybe the most vital, but hardest to quantify metric, the number of children smiling.
wow.
The sort of painful insight here is that healing the wounds of the heart, the trauma, the fear, the loss of safety, that might take much longer than healing the wounds of the city itself.
You can rebuild a street in a couple of years.
Right, but rebuilding trust, rebuilding community cohesion, that doesn't necessarily happen on the same timeline.
That's the real differentiator, isn't it? The physical part might hit that 10 or 20-year target, but the societal, the emotional healing, that's going to stretch way beyond. It's more like societal transformation than just construction.
Absolutely. And this brings us back to the power of the individual,
Yeah.
connecting back to that domino effect idea.
How so?
Well, when you face destruction on this scale, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, to ask, what difference can I possibly make?
Yeah, what can one person do?
The sources offer a pretty powerful answer to that.
Which is,
That every single act matters.
yeah.
Every donation, no matter how small, every hour someone volunteers for rebuilding efforts, it all counts.
Yeah.
Just like each domino is needed for the whole pattern to work.
Right.
Every piece of individual commitment helps move the needle from just being abstract international aid down to actual concrete recovery happening on the ground.
Okay. And to help make that individual participation happen quickly, the sources mention some specific ways to support the effort right away.
Yes, and it's interesting, given how fast help is needed and how traditional banking systems might be completely broken in a conflict zone,
Yeah, good point.
they actually reference using specialized cryptocurrency options for donations.
Wow, okay. That's a very 21st century solution to an age-old problem. They actually list things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, stablecoins.
They do.
Why crypto? Why would that be better than, say, a traditional bank transfer in this specific situation?
It boils down to a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Speed, transparency, and access.
Yeah.
Traditional bank transfers can be slow, they get tangled in regulations, or the physical banks and wire systems might just be destroyed or offline.
Right.
Cryptocurrency can allow funds to move very quickly globally. Often you can see the transactions on a public ledger, so there's transparency, and it can potentially get funds more directly to organizations working on the ground, bypassing those broken financial roadblocks.
So it offers agility when you need to buy diesel fuel or medical kits, like right now.
Exactly. Instant agility when the need is overwhelming and immediate.
It really shows an awareness that, the generosity today needs to plant seeds for peace tomorrow, and sometimes technology can help bridge gaps left by destruction.
Okay, we've covered a lot of the scale, the logistics, the tough choices, the decades-long timeline.
I think what really stands out is the essential realism needed here.
Yeah.
That October 2025 agreement, it's not the end of the suffering, not by a long shot. It's the difficult, necessary start of a whole new journey.
The overall goal feels almost like alchemy, trying to turn rubble into actual hope, turn despair into determination, turn brokenness into resilience. The sheer size of the task is just immense. But the need for ongoing, determined, smart support is just as immense.
And that necessity, that brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on.
Mhm.
If the sources are right, that the emotional and spiritual healing, the kind you measure in jobs and smiles and feeling safe again, if that's what really determines success in the long run.
Which seems likely.
And if that healing takes significantly longer than the 10 or 20 years they estimate just for the physical rebuilding, what does that really imply about the kind of international commitment that's needed? If healing the heart takes longer than healing the city, are we, as a global community, actually prepared to commit not just to a 10-year construction project, but to maybe a 20-year or even longer project of societal transformation?
That really is the level of commitment this situation demands. Definitely something powerful to mull over as you leave this deep dive.